I'm Mark Dresner, and this is Research TV, brought to you by the Market Research Event, the largest and most comprehensive conference in the world dedicated to increasing the business value of insights. Joining me today is Suzana Pamplona. She is the Director of Strategic Insights and Business Intelligence for Johnson & Johnson Brazil. Suzana, welcome to Research TV.
Thank you.
You mentioned when we spoke previously that data from Brazilian respondents tends to skew positive. How do you address this issue, and can you tell us a little bit what's behind that?
Yes, actually in the Brazilian society, if you think about the people in Brazil, they tend to try to be nice, to establish sympathy with anyone. So it actually impacts in the way they answer to research because they are more condescending. They don't want to hurt feelings. So it's difficult for Brazilians to say I don't like or I disagree, right? And the way we address that, actually there are many ways and depend on the way we are running the research. In qualitative, actually, it's very important, and actually it's important in any qualitative that has quality. But actually it's very important to pay attention to what is not said, to the body language, and also to use more of projective techniques and also implicit ways of getting the response of consumers. And the same applies for quantitative as well. Actually in quantitative, it's very important, first of all, to try to establish a dialogue, even considering that it's a question that it normally direct. But the intention is try to use the consumer language to make them feel comfortable and that they are really chatting with you, not only answering I agree or disagree. Another important thing is the scales in quantitative. It's important to consider, again, more the implicit models and the questions in a way that are more evaluative or semantic scales. The agreement scales also can work, but they tend to be more undifferentiated in Brazil because people, they normally will agree with everything. It's difficult for them to disagree. So it works better for attitudinal questions than for evaluating a product or features or even for a brand because they won't disagree with a brand that they love. So it's important to think of that. And finally, it's also important to have a control cell or a database for comparison or historical data that you will have to understand which is that result is really positive comparing to the database or if it's just people being nice, trying to be nice, yes. I would say research is not only about just one type of approach, right? It's about complementary types of understanding that when you put together, it's part of this comprehensive understanding about the reality. And our role as researchers is actually to try to offer this curatorship about the information we have available, because actually there is a lot of data available. It's not lack of them, but how to choose the right way for that specific problem.
To what extent has the internet, mobile certainly, affected how research is conducted in Brazil? Is face-to-face still a primary modality, for example?
Not necessarily, not anymore. Actually, in the past was just about face-to-face. But nowadays we use online, offline, and again, depends on what is your target, depends on what is the question you have. But we are using a lot of an ethnographic actually that we are observing what is happening. Brazil is the second country in Facebook users, even just having 40% of internet penetration in Brazil, and 40% considering all the media they use to access internet, considering mobiles and everything. Because actually in Brazil there are more mobiles than people. The cover is about 130% of, they are much more mobile than people. But they are not already smartphones. The majority of them are prepaid.
I see.
But again, it really influences, and in the communities in favelas in Brazil, there are a lot of land houses that people go there and they pay by hour to access internet. So the penetration is still 40. It's growing a lot in a speed, high speed. And we are using a lot this type of approach, but depending on if you really need to access something to represent the total population or mainstream consumers or low-income consumers, we cannot do just buy online. We have to do face-to-face.
Is it preferable to use a local supplier to source locally or internationally, perhaps for interviewing or any other research that you're doing? How does that play out?
There are some kind of research that works better with local suppliers. Semiotics is one of them, because you have to be part of that culture to interpret. All the ethnographic is also good when you have someone that really can decode what's really happening in that specific conversation. All the qualitative part, normally, we use the local boutiques, as we say. There are smaller companies, but they are very senior people that really understand about the Brazilian market. But also we have a good suppliers for international suppliers. And what is interesting, when you have someone from abroad interviewing, or when they feel that you are not from there, you are there just observing, but they know you are not Brazilian, it's interesting to see that they try to explain much more. Because as you are not from that world, they try to play, and actually sometimes really helps, because they go beyond what they would go if they take for granted that a Brazilian would understand. So they try to explain much more. It's interesting to see.
So you get much more on occasion out of the respondent when you're using somebody who is not local.
Yeah.
That's
and again, it's they try to be nice, and they try to make you feel comfortable, and part of the inclusion is very important for Brazilians, and they also play back that for foreigners.
And inadvertently, you get a lot more information, perhaps, that wasn't intended.
It can happen, yeah.
That's terrific. Suzana, thank you very much for giving us kind of a tour and overview of research in Brazil. Very interesting stuff you're doing down there.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was great to have you. And on that note, I'm Mark Dresner. This is Research TV, and you've just heard The Insight Scoop.